The Arizona desert is vast, dry, and unforgiving. The Superstition Mountains, rising sharply from the plains east of Phoenix, are no exception. The jagged peaks and deep canyons are a place where few venture and fewer still return. But within this desolate wilderness there is a legend, one that has drawn treasure hunters, adventurers, and dreamers to its inhospitable depths for over a century. This is the tale of the lost Dutchman's mine, a gold mine so rich and so elusive that it has become one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in the history of treasure hunting. Some say it's just a myth, a story spun by those desperate for riches. Others believe it's a real treasure, hidden, waiting to be discovered. But for anyone brave enough to search, the mountains are filled with danger, and the mine has become as much a curse as it is a promise of untold wealth. The story begins in the 1860s with a German immigrant named Jacob Waltz, though he would become known to history as the Dutchman. Waltz came to America in search of a better life, eventually settling in the Arizona Territory. He was a prospector, like many men who traveled west to seek their fortune, but there was one thing that set him apart from the others. He found gold. It's said that in the Superstition Mountains, Waltz discovered a rich vein of gold. Some say it was a cave, others suggest it was a hidden stash deep in the mountains. But whatever it was enough to make him incredibly wealthy. The legend tells us that the mine was unlike anything anyone had seen before. Gold so abundant that it seemed to flow like a river, just waiting to be claimed. But Jacob Waltz wasn't the kind of man who shared his secrets. In fact, he was famously secretive about the location of the mine. As he grew older, he became more and more reclusive, keeping the knowledge of the treasure close to his chest. Though some of his contemporaries believed he had struck it rich, no one could ever pinpoint the location of his gold mine, and Waltz refused to say a word about it. He lived out his days in Phoenix, becoming a mystery to the very people who had worked with him, and no one, except perhaps the Apache, knew where the mine truly was. By the time Jacob Waltz died in 1891, the story of the lost Dutchman's mine was already growing. Many believed that he had left behind clues, hidden directions that would lead to the gold. Some say that on his deathbed, Waltz confided in a woman named Julia Thomas, telling her the location of the mine. Others suggest that he gave her a cryptic map, but like many pieces of the puzzle, the details are shrouded in mystery. What is clear is that Waltz's passing ignited the search for the treasure he left behind, and it sparked an obsession that would continue for decades. The following years saw a growing frenzy of treasure hunters, all convinced that the lost Dutchman's mine was real and waiting to be found. But the mountains, with their rugged terrain and heat that could kill a man in a matter of hours, proved to be a formidable opponent. Despite their best efforts, no one could uncover the mine, and many perished in the attempt. Some disappeared without a trace, while others succumbed to the harsh desert environment. One of the first men to seriously hunt for the treasure was Adolph Ruth, a retired physician from California who became obsessed with the idea of the mine. Ruth was not a seasoned prospector, but he believed that if he could just follow the clues left by Waltz, he could find the gold. In 1931, Ruth ventured into the Superstition Mountains with little more than a rough map and a few vague directions. His search was initially promising. Ruth spent several months exploring the mountains, using his knowledge of geology and surveying to identify possible locations. But as the weeks wore on, Ruth became increasingly frustrated. The clues didn't add up, and he was no closer to finding the treasure. Still, his obsession grew. Ruth was determined to find the mine, and he refused to give up. It was this obsession that would ultimately lead to Ruth's death. In July of 1931, Ruth vanished. Friends and family searched for him, but there was no sign of the doctor. A search party combed the mountains, and months later, in November of that same year, Ruth's body was discovered. He had been shot in the head. The cause of death was immediately suspicious. Ruth had been carrying a revolver, and there were signs that he had been forced to dig his own grave. Many believed Ruth had been murdered by someone who didn't want him to find the treasure, possibly another treasure hunter, or even someone protecting the secret of the mine. Others thought that Ruth had become so obsessed with the hunt that he had gone mad. His death, like so many before him, only deepened the mystery of the lost Dutchman's mine. Despite Ruth's tragic end, the legend of the mine only grew. Over the years, more and more people came to the Superstition Mountains in search of the treasure. Among them were men like Ralph Glidden, who in the 1930s and 1940s claimed to have found the mine's location. Glidden spent years combing the area, even uncovering gold-bearing rocks and artifacts, but he never provided definitive proof that he had found the treasure. Then there was Glenn Powell, a man in the 1940s who believed that he had come close to uncovering the mine. Powell had studied Waltz's alleged map and conducted his own search, convinced he was on the verge of success. But, like so many others, Powell was unable to find the gold. His search ended in frustration, and his health began to deteriorate. Powell died in 1949, his body found in the mountains, possibly from exhaustion or an accident. Over time, some began to theorize that the key to finding the lost Dutchman's mine lay not in the stories of Waltz or the clues he left behind, but in the Peralta family. The Peraltas were a well-known family of miners in Arizona, and many believed that the mine Waltz had discovered was actually part of a much larger cache of gold left behind by the Peralta brothers. The Peraltas had operated in the area in the 1840s and 1850s before being driven out by the Apache, who had claimed the mountains as their own. Some believed that the Peraltas had created a map to the gold, a map that was lost or hidden along with the treasure itself. The Peralta theory became even more popular in the 1930s when a man named Joe Ribaudo claimed that he had discovered a series of rock carvings that might have been part of the original map. These carvings were said to be the work of the Peralta family, and Ribaudo believed they would lead him to the mine. However, his claims were never fully verified, and like so many others, Ribaudo's hunt for the lost Dutchman's mine ended in frustration. Despite these setbacks, the search never truly stopped. Over the years, treasure hunters have used everything from metal detectors to helicopters to ground-penetrating radar in their quest to find the mine. In the 1990s, an expedition led by Peralta's descendants attempted to locate the gold using advanced mapping technology, but they were unsuccessful. Many have claimed to have come close to finding it, only for the treasure to remain just out of reach. In the 2000s, more serious efforts have been made to find the mine using modern tools like drones and GPS mapping. One group of explorers, using cutting-edge technology, believed they had pinpointed the location of the lost Dutchman's mine. They searched an area near Apache Leap, a place tied to both the Peraltas and the Apache, and found what they thought was an ancient mine shaft. But after weeks of exploration, the group left empty-handed. Some believe that the gold is still there, hidden in plain sight. Others are convinced that the mine is simply a myth, a story created to lure treasure hunters to their deaths. What is it about the lost Dutchman's mine that has captivated so many for so long? Is it the promise of gold, or is it something deeper? Perhaps it's the idea that some treasures are meant to remain hidden, that some mysteries are too dangerous to solve. In the end, the lost Dutchman's mine remains a legend, a symbol of obsession, greed, and the dangers of chasing after a dream. It's a place that will forever be both a promise and a curse, waiting perhaps for someone bold enough or foolish enough to find it. Somewhere beneath the harsh desert landscape, beneath the rocks and the dust, lies the gold that Waltz and the Peraltas left behind. But whether it's still there, waiting to be found, or if it was taken long ago, remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the American West. The legend of the lost Dutchman's mine lives on, a treasure hunt that has taken the lives of many and may take many more before it is ever uncovered. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the story, please give it a like. For lots more treasure stories, subscribe to Treasure Quest TV and hit the notification button to never miss a new video.